Have the Dr. Robin Radcliffe and Sharon Liu, and they're going to talk about the idea of conservation and what they are doing right now. Okay, so nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so how about we start by when and why did you decide to become a vet?
Okay, I'll start. I grew up in rural Wisconsin, and we had a farm, and so I grew up around animals and lots of wildlife. And my brothers and sisters also were very interested in animals. And when I got to a little older, where I could decide what I might want to be when I get older, I liked the idea of medicine and also conservation and wildlife. So I went to veterinary school thinking that I would somehow combine the two. So maybe not the traditional, I had a cat or a dog and I wanted to care for them. My interest was much more in wild animals and nature, I guess I would say. So, Sharon?
Yeah, it's similar. 从小我觉得就是对动物、对生物、对植物什么都有兴趣。那我的爸爸是医生，然后当然我的家长希望我也当医生。我姐姐也是对人医有兴趣，可是我跟我爸爸一样，就兴趣很多。那不能决定说真的只有，如果要医人的话是一辈子，所以我想说，那要不要当兽医？可是我也是还没有决定，因为兽医只有医动物，本来是想法是兽医只有医动物，然后结果发现说没有，兽医其实什么都可以做。然后呢，如果是要保护环境、保护人、保护动物，全部都在一起。那中文可能没有这个字，可是我们叫这个 idea 叫 conservation medicine。那如果可以什么都医的话，我觉得这样子我最高兴。所以一找到这个，我就决定说想当兽医。
Okay, thank you. So, why in general is biodiversity so important? Like, if the ecosystems such as the Yellowstones are so resilient, then why should we conserve endangered species at all?
Well, from my perspective, I think endangered species have their own place in the world, even if we don't understand their role for humans. And I hope some of that has come across in this class, where you've learned about not only how animals help people, but also maybe animals have their own right to exist and are important parts of an ecosystem, even if we don't completely understand it. And to me, biodiversity is everything about nature, and it's hard to imagine a forest, or whether it's a forest here in North America or a forest, some of the rainforests that I visit in Indonesia, it would be hard for me to envision a healthy forest without all the variety of life that are found there. And that's not just the large mammals and birds that humans tend to be drawn towards, but a lot of the smaller creatures that often are not recognized because they're rather small or insignificant, or not readily visible to humans, and so.
我觉得 每一个人都会有跌倒的时候，那每一种动物都是会有失败的时候，每一种社会也有失败的时候。那不一样的地方就是说，如果几种不一样的动物绝种，或者几种不一样的植物绝种，没关系。可是如果环境跌倒站不起来的话，那我们大家都站不起来。
Thank you. So, next question is about Dr. Raku's project. Can you briefly summarize what Living Fossil Foundation do?
Okay, Living Fossil Foundation is actually a non-profit foundation that my brother, I have a twin brother that is also who is also a veterinarian, that we founded because we wanted to combine art and science. So it's really focused on kind of bringing art and science together, and it's a very young organization and a small organization, and our first major project actually was a children's book about Indonesian rhinos, which has been funded through a grant from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They have a rhino and tiger conservation fund, and the book will be published probably in September or October, and then distributed to families in Indonesia to kind of educate them about the value of rhinos and kind of a little bit more about their natural history.
Okay, thank you. So, do you have any memorable experience when you're working with animals, or in what ways do they influence you?
That's a good question. Many people ask me why I work with rhinos, and when I was in veterinary school, I never thought I would focus towards rhinos. In fact, I grew up in Wisconsin, and I've spent a lot of time in Canada and Alaska, and I love North American wildlife. So for me, being drawn away to work in Africa and Indonesia was not something I had planned on doing. But I think to me, it's amazing to see some of the unique things that I've learned about rhinos, as an example, and many other species. But I'm gonna, since you wanted me to pick one memorable experience, one of the things that has been really curious for me, and something I'd like to explore more, is something that you learned a little bit about in this course, which was the bioacoustics program at the Lab of Ornithology. And actually, I talked with them about going to Indonesia at some point and studying Sumatran rhino vocalizations, because they make the most amazing sounds. They make squeaks, whistles, like toots, and nobody knows what they mean and what they're for. And to me, listening to a Sumatran rhino communicate in the rainforest is a wonderful experience, and to try and better understand their language, what I think would be a really neat thing. So that's something that I have thought about and interests me quite a bit because of the work that I'm doing, and so I think that's a good example of something that really stands out in terms of something that influenced me.
我非常喜欢海洋的哺乳类，因为海洋的哺乳类，开始跟他们相处，然后呢，就是我在加州有拯救这些动物，然后呢有特别的地方帮忙这些动物。那看到这些动物的话，这些动物都是很聪明，非常聪明，然后呢非常好奇的动物。它们每一只都不一样，每一只都有它自己的 personality， 然后呢，看到他们受伤或者是死亡的话，你会心碎。然后看到他们又好起来，然后有人帮助他们，然后看到小孩非常兴奋的在看着他们，会觉得感动。然后看他们回到海洋的时候也会感动。
Okay. So next one is a rather broader question. So nowadays, many developing countries are caught in the dilemma between environmental conservation and economic development. So, in your opinion, do you think these two important problems can be solved simultaneously?
Well, I think they'll have to be, and I think the biggest challenge in the future is human population, and then the recognition that there's a finite number of resources on this planet, and there's only one planet. I think there's a lot of progress that has been made. I mean, we've learned this last couple of weeks about improvements in agriculture and production and things like that. But at the same time, we've also learned about a lot of the costs related to production and more intensive agriculture and things like that. So, like many of our professors have told us in the last couple of weeks, that we need food, we need water, we need shelter, and I just hope that the future includes all the other living things that we share the planet with, because not necessarily because I just like to see them, but because they're going to be a very important part of living sustainably on this earth. Because if we push these other species to extinction, we're going to push ourselves to extinction. And I think the earth can survive without humans, and that may be what is going to happen eventually. Humans will become extinct, and evolution will proceed on its normal course, and hopefully humans don't destroy the planet before that happens. But I think there's immense challenges, and there's also immense hope, and it's really going to be in young people like you and other people who need to make a difference in their own neighborhood. And I think it's easy for us to try and go somewhere else to save biodiversity or save the environment or save the some endangered species. And I see that especially because I travel to international destinations and countries. But it makes me realize even more so how important it is to take care of your own environment and your own backyard. And for me, I see myself in the future focusing more on things right here in New York, and maybe not quite as much in Africa or Indonesia. And one of the things that I really like about my work in Indonesia and Africa is that I learn as much from my colleagues over there than they ever learn from me, and it's something that I will benefit from forever. So I think that's, to me, the answer is in really developing an ethic where people take care of their own environment, and if that happens, I think there is hope.
OK， 我觉得如果要改变我们现在每一种社会开始发展到变成已经发展的国家，都有非常类似的一个 pattern。那我觉得可以有2件事改变这种发展的方法，一个是有创意，然后呢，第2个是科技。因为人开始多，需要的就多，我们需要的蛋白质更多，砍的树更多。那如果开始发展的时候，第一件事就是会修路，然后路一下来，那大家如果越来越靠近这些树林、这些森林，然后呢没有就是以前不需要保护的地方，那就开始砍树，然后房子开始盖，然后人越来越多，需要的越来越多。那这个 pattern 是不会改变的，可是可以改变的地方就是有创意。你如果有创意的话，你可以想到对人、对动物跟环境，都非常好的，然后呢，如果有科技的话，可以这样的帮助。所以我们有科技，虽然是砍的树也是比较快，或者是路修的也比较快，然后用的这些能源都比较快，可是也可以像现在在开始发展的国家，手机到处都是手机。那现在科学家也是用手机来看看说犀牛在哪里，然后呢互相找。那现在大家都有像相机那些，或者是望远镜。那在美国是连小孩子每一年都可以用望远镜看看说鸟在飞的时候是哪一种鸟。然后呢，所以就是说科技可以用来对环境好，也可以用来对环境不好。那我觉得说有教育、有创意、有科技的话，都可以改变这个 pattern。
Okay, so what is your opinion towards zoo, aquarium, and other facilities that capture wild animals?
I think zoos and aquaria play an essential role in conservation and animal welfare. I think there are certainly limitations to zoos in many ways, and I think zoos in the next generation really need to make a difference in conservation, not just by giving money to programs to support, but to have tangible links to the field in every program that they have. In other words, I think zoos should less be for entertainment and public recreation, and much more serving the purpose of a clear educational message and linking very closely with field conservation efforts in the wild. The place I disagree most with zoos is the amount of money that we spend in keeping animals in captivity. And I think in many cases those resources could probably be better used in situ conservation. But the zoos and aquarium around the world play an important role. If people aren't educated or don't understand the problems that these species are facing, the first step to saving anything is learning about it and caring about it. And I think that is probably the most important role that zoos play. Certainly there are other specific programs where zoos have contributed to conserving a species through reintroduction and things like that. But to me, a species will only be really saved if it's saved in the wild habitat. And I think zoos have a very important role to play in achieving that.
Okay. So, last question is, what can we as ordinary citizens do to make direct and positive influence on conservation?
I think what you're doing right now, coming to, educating yourself and making a difference locally. I think it's easy to decide you want to go some exotic place and save the rhino or the tiger or some other great animal. But really, the most important thing anyone can do is make sure that they're saving their own, species and environment where they live in their own backyard. And if everyone did that, the world would be a better place. And I think it's easy also to get to lose hope because you think you're just one person and one person can't make a difference. But many of the greatest ideas on earth have come from a single person, and every little bit helps. And whether it's recycling or turning off the light when you leave a room or whatever, we learned in this course that energy is a finite resource, and it's something that we all have to think about, and it's all tied into everything that we've been talking about in terms of feeding ourselves, protecting the environment, protecting our clean air and clean water. And so I think if everyone has that ethic and mindset, you could make a big difference.
我觉得人需要的地方有时候不一样，或者他们的想法不一样。那我们想要拯救环境的人，会一直跟其他人讲说，那你可不可以牺牲这个，牺牲那个？那真的是有些人可以，有些人不能。那我觉得我们很容易就可以批评另外一个人，就是有不一样想法的人，那很容易批评，也很容易抗议。那我觉得，其实最好的办法改变人的心态，改变人的想法，就是跟他们聊天。然后呢，所以我觉得做朋友，那大家都说好像一个人其实不能做得了，什么也做不了，也不能改变世界。可是我觉得像现在我们想要当老师，然后呢一下子就可以教学生，然后呢教很多个，然后呢看看说他们的想法可以到哪里，然后呢，所以我觉得说应该是不要批评，不要抗议，就是跟人聊天，了解他们，然后让他们也了解你。这样子的话，我觉得是最容易改变世界的方法，还是一个人聊天。
Thank thank you for your great
You're
words,
welcome.
and also thank you for what you have done to the environment. And I hope with this video, more people will join.
Good. Thank you.